At exactly 3:07 a.m., Marcus Hale slowed his car as it rolled past his restaurant. He didn't mean to stop. Normally, at this hour, he drove straight home, tired, mindful of numbers, reservations, staff schedules, and reviews. But something made his foot ease off the accelerator. The street was empty. No traffic. No voices. No movement. And yet, the kitchen lights were on. Bright. Bold. Impossible to miss. They spilled through the tall back windows of Hale and Half, cutting through the darkness like a flare fired into the night. The glow stretched across the pavement, reflecting off parked cars and wet asphalt, as if the building itself were wide awake. Marcus frowned. That wasn't possible. The restaurant closed at 11 p.m. Cleaning crew left by midnight. The alarm was always armed by 12:15. Marcus personally checked the logs. No exceptions. No excuses. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. For a brief moment, a dozen thoughts rushed his mind. A break-in. A fire hazard. Someone stealing? But there was no shattered glass. No alarm screaming. No smoke. Just light. And something else. Marcus cracked his window open. That's when the smell reached him. Warm bread. Not the stale, reheated kind, but fresh. Yeasty. Alive. The kind that took patience and time. The kind you didn't rush. Then roasted garlic. Deep and sweet. Then something richer. Slower. Stock. The kind that simmered for hours, not minutes. Marcus swallowed. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't panic. This was care. He parked the car quietly across the street and stepped out. The night air cool against his skin. His dress shoes echoed softly as he crossed the pavement. Every step made his pulse beat a little louder in his ears. He didn't call the police. He didn't call security. Something inside him said, wait. See. The side entrance loomed ahead. Steel door, keypad glowing faintly. Marcus entered the code. The door unlocked. That alone unsettled him. Inside, the hallway lights were dim, motion sensors barely waking as he passed. His footsteps felt too loud, like he was intruding on something sacred. The deeper he went, the stronger the smells became. Bread baking somewhere close. A knife tapping rhythmically against a cutting board, not frantic. Measured. Intentional. Marcus slowed his pace. The kitchen door was slightly open. Light spilled through the crack, warm and golden. Unlike the cold fluorescence usually used during service. This light felt different. Softer. Almost. Respectful. Marcus hesitated. For years, this kitchen had been his kingdom. Every tile, every pan, every flame answered to him. He'd fired people here. Promoted others. Watched dreams begin and end within these walls. Yet standing there, hand resting on the doorframe, he felt like a guest. He pushed the door open just enough to see inside. And stopped breathing. The kitchen was alive, not in the frantic, high-pressure chaos of dinner service, but in a calm, focused rhythm. Pots simmered quietly. The one who never argued, never asked for spotlight shifts, never lingered in staff meetings. The one managers rarely mentioned unless they were talking about reliability. Solid worker. Keeps his head down. Good hands, but nothing flashy. That David. Except this David was nothing like the man Marcus thought he knew. He moved with purpose, tasting a sauce, adjusting seasoning with careful precision. He plated food gently, almost reverently, wiping edges clean, arranging portions as if each container mattered. And then Marcus noticed something strange. David wasn't wearing his chef's jacket. He wore a plain black t-shirt underneath. Slightly faded, sleeves stretched from use. His apron was clean but worn, tied tight like armor. This wasn't a shift. This wasn't overtime. This was something else entirely. Marcus scanned the room again. Stacks of insulated containers. Carefully labeled bags. Ingredients Marcus knew weren't cheap, and definitely weren't scheduled for any menu. His heart began to pound. Why is he here? Why alone? Why at 3 a.m.? David reached for another container. Humming softly to himself, barely audible, almost like a prayer. His face wasn't tense. It wasn't nervous. It was focused. Peaceful. Like a man exactly where he needed to be. Marcus took one step forward. The floor creaked. David froze. The knife stopped midair. Slowly, very slowly, David turned around. And their eyes met. The hum died instantly. Silence filled the kitchen, thick and heavy. David's eyes widened. "Mr. Hale," he said, voice tight with shock. Marcus stood there, unable to speak. The owner. The boss. The man who thought he knew everything about his restaurant. Staring at a truth he didn't yet understand. And in that moment, standing, under lights that were never supposed to be on, Marcus realized something profound was about to be revealed. At the center of the kitchen stood David Monroe. Not rushing. Not panicking. Not hiding. Just working. The black chef everyone overlooked. By day, David blended into the background of Hale and Half like stainless steel and steam. He clocked in early, always before anyone else. He stayed late, usually after the last light was shut off. He spoke softly, answered yes. Chef without attitude, and never fought for attention. Some coworkers thought he lacked ambition. Others assumed he was simply comfortable, content to remain where he was, cooking someone else's vision, never pushing for more. They were wrong. Because at 3 a.m., with no audience and no applause, David moved like a man on a mission. His chef's jacket was gone, folded neatly on a chair near the prep table. His sleeves were rolled up past his elbows, revealing forearms marked by years of heat and hard work. A faint sheen of sweat lined his forehead. But his eyes were steady, focused in a way Marcus had never seen during service. This wasn't the pace of a dinner rush. This was something deeper. David wasn't cooking for customers. There were no reservation cards clipped to the rail. No servers waiting impatiently. No expediter shouting times. Instead, dozens of meals were lined up across the counters, each packed carefully into insulated containers. Lids wiped clean, edges perfect. The portions were modest but generous, like someone wanted every bite to matter. Marcus took a slow step forward. That's when he noticed something else. Every container had a handwritten label. Not printed. Not rushed. Handwritten. Marcus leaned closer. Low sodium. No dairy. Soft foods only. Heart healthy. Diabetic safe. His breath caught. This wasn't bulk cooking. This wasn't charity thrown together with leftovers. This was custom. Personal. Someone had taken the time to learn what each person needed, and then respected it. Marcus felt a strange heat rise behind his eyes. He scanned the ingredients nearby. Fresh herbs. Quality proteins. Produce delivered that very morning. This wasn't cheap. This wasn't leftover stock or scraps. David was using the same standards Marcus demanded for paying guests. Marcus had built his reputation on excellence. And here it was, being practiced in secret. A soft scraping sound echoed through the kitchen. Marcus had moved without realizing it. The sole of his shoe brushed against the tile. David stiffened instantly. The knife in his hand stopped mid-chop. Slowly, too slowly, David turned around. Their eyes met. Shock flashed across David's face, followed immediately by fear. His shoulders tensed. His jaw tightened. "Mr. Hale," David said, voice unsteady. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. David glanced at the containers. At the stove. At the door behind Marcus. I can explain," he said quickly, setting the knife down as if it suddenly weighed too much. His hands came up slightly, palms open, not in surrender, but instinct. Marcus raised a hand. Not angry. Not accusing. Just calm. "Please do," Marcus said. David swallowed hard. For a moment, it looked like he might shut down completely. Years of staying invisible didn't disappear easily. Being seen, truly seen, felt dangerous. "I'm not stealing," David said first, words tumbling out. "I buy most of the ingredients myself. The rest, I replace. I keep receipts. I swear." Marcus didn't interrupt. David took that as permission. "I know I shouldn't be here this late," he continued. "I reset everything before service. Nothing's missing. Nothing's wasted." His voice cracked. I need the kitchen." That sentence landed heavy. Marcus studied him. The quiet chef. The overlooked one. The man standing in the heart of his restaurant at 3 a.m. Not asking for recognition, only understanding. You could have asked, Marcus said gently. David gave a small, bitter smile. I didn't think anyone would listen. Marcus felt the weight of that truth press into him. David gestured toward the containers. They're not for me, he said softly. I promise. Marcus already knew that. Marcus realized something in that moment. This man, this chef everyone underestimated, had been doing something extraordinary. Right under his nose. Not for praise. Not for promotion. Not for money. But because he couldn't stand the idea of people being forgotten. And Marcus knew, deep down, that whatever David was about to explain next, it was going to change the way he saw his restaurant forever. David took a breath. Then another. It felt like the air had thickened in his lungs. Like every word he was about to say had been waiting years to be spoken. And now that someone was finally listening, his body didn't know how to let them go. I come here after my second job, he said quietly. Marcus didn't move. Didn't interrupt. Didn't rush him. I clean offices at night, David continued. Downtown. Law firms. Tech buildings. Places where people leave half-drunk. Coffee cups on their desks and never think about who wipes them away. His voice wasn't angry. Just tired. When I'm done there, I come here. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the gentle simmer of a pot on the stove. Marcus folded his arms slowly, leaning against the counter, giving David his full attention. David swallowed. My mother's in a care home, he said. Been there 3 years now. Stroke took most of her strength. Some days she remembers my name. Some days she doesn't. He paused, eyes fixed on the floor. So are 12 other seniors on her floor. Men and women who worked their whole lives. Teachers. Bus drivers. Factory workers. People who raised families, paid taxes, did everything right. David shook his head slightly. The food they're served. His voice trailed off. Marcus waited. Processed, David finally said. Cold. Overcooked. Underseasoned. Sometimes it arrives already dried out. Sometimes it sits untouched because it's too hard to chew or too salty for their hearts. His jaw tightened. I watched my mother push her tray away more times than I can count, he went on. Not because she wasn't hungry. Because the food didn't feel like food anymore. David looked up then, eyes glossy but steady. It felt like being forgotten. The words landed hard. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. David turned back toward the containers, resting a hand on one as if grounding himself. I tried talking to the staff, he said. They're good people. Overworked. Underpaid. They do what they can. But the meals come frozen. Pre-approved. No flexibility. He exhaled slowly. So I started bringing food from home. Just small things at first. Soup. Soft vegetables. Stuff she could eat. That's when it started. I noticed the others watching, David said. They'd smell it. Ask what it was. Ask if it was warm. His voice softened. One woman, Eleanor, she told me it was the first real meal she'd had in months. David's shoulders sagged slightly. And that broke me. Marcus stayed silent, afraid that if he spoke, he'd break the moment. So I started cooking more, David said. But here. His voice almost reverent. Here I had space. Heat. Tools. I knew how to cook properly. David hesitated, then added, I know it's not mine. Marcus felt that sentence like a blade. So I used my own money, David said quickly. I budgeted. Skipped things. Took extra shifts. Learned how to stretch ingredients without sacrificing quality. He gave a small, humorless laugh. I watched videos. Read medical nutrition guides. Learned which spices were safe. Which weren't. How to cook soft foods that still had flavor. How to make low-sodium meals that didn't taste like punishment. David looked exhausted now, not physically, but emotionally. Like the weight of all those nights had finally settled. Every night, he said. After cleaning offices. After everyone else goes to sleep. I come here. He looked around the kitchen again. I cook for them when the world is quiet, he said. When no one's watching. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I don't have much, David said softly. No savings. No safety net. Just enough to get by. He placed his palm flat against the stainless steel counter. But I have this kitchen, he continued. And I know how to cook with love. The word love echoed in the space between them. Marcus had built his empire on discipline, excellence, and reputation. But this? This was something deeper. Something he hadn't measured before. Why didn't you ask for help? Marcus asked finally, his voice low. David smiled, but it wasn't happy. It was tired. Resigned. People don't usually offer it to people like me, he said. The sentence hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Marcus felt it hit him harder than any accusation ever could. David didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. Years of being overlooked, assumed, dismissed, all wrapped into one quiet truth. I didn't want attention, David added after a moment. Didn't want permission. I just wanted them to eat something warm. Something made by someone who cared. Marcus looked at the rows of containers again. Not meals. Messages. Proof that someone still saw them. Still remembered. Still cared enough to show up at 3 a.m. And in that moment, Marcus realized this wasn't about breaking rules. This was about why rules existed in the first place. David stood there, exposed now, waiting for judgment. Waiting to be told to stop. Waiting to lose the only place that let him do this work. Marcus straightened slowly. And for the first time since opening Hale and Half, he didn't feel like the owner of a restaurant. He felt like a witness to something sacred. And he knew, without a doubt, that nothing about this night would end the same way it began. Marcus looked around his spotless kitchen. Every surface gleamed. Every knife was in its place. Every station reflected years of discipline, rules, and standards he had built brick by brick. This kitchen had made his reputation. Critics praised it. Investors trusted it. 2 years. Marcus let the number settle. 2 years of sleepless nights. 2 years of double shifts. 2 years of cooking in silence, expecting nothing in return. Marcus exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand across his jaw. David, he said, do you know what you've been doing? David shifted his weight, eyes flicking briefly to the door, as if this was the moment he'd be asked to leave. Trying to help. He offered. Marcus shook his head. No, he said firmly. You've been doing what leaders do. What heart-driven chefs do. David looked up, confused. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. You saw a problem no one else wanted to see, Marcus continued. And instead of waiting for permission, you showed up. Night after night. David opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. No one had ever spoken to him like this. That night, Marcus didn't shut the kitchen down. He didn't lecture. He didn't threaten. He pulled out 2 chairs. They sat at the prep table, stainless steel cold beneath their arms. Steam rising quietly around them like a witness. Marcus asked questions. Not corporate ones. Human ones. How David balanced 2 jobs. How he afforded the ingredients. How many people he fed each week. How he kept going when he was exhausted. David answered honestly. Sometimes his hands shook from fatigue. Sometimes he slept in his car between shifts. Sometimes he questioned if it even mattered. Marcus listened. For the first time in years. He listened without thinking about profit margins or reviews. As dawn crept closer, the sky outside the kitchen windows shifted from black to grey. That's when Marcus stood. He walked slowly around the kitchen, hands clasped behind his back, thinking. Then he turned to David. We are doing this differently, he said. David frowned slightly. Sir. Marcus met his eyes. This kitchen doesn't close at midnight anymore, Marcus said. Not for this. David's breath caught. I don't want you sneaking in here, Marcus continued. I want this done right. Safely. With support. David shook his head in disbelief. You don't have to. I know, Marcus interrupted. I want to. Before sunrise, Marcus had made his decision. Within a week, Hale and Half released a quiet announcement. That sent ripples through the city. Midnight Meals, a restaurant-funded initiative providing fresh, chef-prepared meals to care homes, shelters, and recovery centers. No frozen trays, no shortcuts, no compromises. The kitchen would stay open overnight. Ingredients would be purchased ethically. Staff would be paid fairly. And David would lead it. The press conference was scheduled for Friday morning. David stood in the back of the room, hands clasped, wearing a clean chef's jacket that still felt unfamiliar on his shoulders. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters murmured, flipping through notes. Marcus stepped up to the podium. He spoke about responsibility, about community, about the power of food to restore dignity. Then he paused. Today, David Monroe runs a full outreach kitchen. Not hidden, not borrowed, not in secret. A real one. The space hums with life, steel counters worn smooth by purpose, ovens breathing warmth into the early hours, voices layered with laughter and focus. Young chefs move through the room with confidence, aprons tied tight, eyes bright with possibility. Many of them come from places no one expects talent to grow. Neighborhoods overlooked, schools underfunded, lives labeled before they ever had a chance to speak. David hires them anyway. He trains them patiently, corrects gently, pushes firmly when they underestimate themselves. Food is respect, he tells them. If you wouldn't serve it to your own family, don't serve it to anyone else. He doesn't just teach recipes. He teaches discipline, pride, care. Some of the chefs had never held a knife properly before walking into his kitchen. Some had never been told they were good at anything. Now, they stand taller. They speak with certainty. They belong. Every week, thousands of meals leave that kitchen. Not scraps. Not leftovers. Meals cooked with intention and dignity. They go to care homes where seniors now wait by the door at dinner time, asking if David's kitchen is delivering today. To shelters where warm food becomes the first kindness someone's received in days. To recovery centers where nourishment is part of healing. And every night at 3 a.m., the kitchen lights still turn on. But now, they're supposed to. There's no secrecy anymore. No fear of being caught. The doors are open. The schedules are posted. The program is funded and protected. Still, David arrives early. Old habits don't fade easily. Marcus sometimes watches from the office window as David unlocks the door, flips on the lights, and pauses for just a second. Like he's remembering when this hour belonged only to him. Marcus Hale often tells people the same story when they ask about the program. He says the best thing he ever did as a boss wasn't hiring talent. It was finally seeing it. Seeing the quiet ones. The consistent ones. The people who show up when no one is watching. He admits he almost missed it. I built a restaurant on excellence, Marcus says. But David taught me the difference between excellence and impact. Their relationship changed too. Not as owner and employee, but as partners. When Marcus walks through the kitchen now, he doesn't give orders. He asks questions. He listens. He learns. David still wears the same calm expression he always had. Success didn't make him louder. Recognition didn't make him bitter. It made him generous. One night, Marcus asked him why he still worked the overnight shift sometimes. Why he didn't let others handle it. David smiled. Because this is where it started, he said. I don't ever want to forget. There are photos on the outreach kitchen wall now.